What if there was a roadmap, maybe an ancient guide for navigating all the noise of daily life and, truly understanding yourself? Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating ancient text known as the Mahāsatipaṭṭhānasuttaṃ. And look, this isn't just some academic exercise. This text was originally a discourse from a revered teacher to his disciples, and it lays out what it calls a direct path, a path to purification, to overcoming suffering, and achieving, ultimate insight and peace. We're going to unpack its surprisingly practical advice for really sharpening your awareness, both inner and outer worlds.
That's right. And it's absolutely a foundational text in certain wisdom traditions. It offers this incredibly systematic approach to mindfulness. It's remarkably detailed. You can almost think of it like a user manual for the mind. And you might be surprised by how specific and even graphic some of its observations are. But it's all in service of a really profound understanding.
Okay, so this direct path you mentioned, it seems to hinge on what are called the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. What exactly are those, and where do we even begin if we want to, apply them?
Right. So the text outlines four: mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, and mindfulness of mental qualities, or dhammas. The crucial thing, really, the core practice across all four, is observing phenomena, whether they're internal things like thoughts or external things like sounds. And it's not just noticing them, it's truly grasping their arising and their passing away. Understanding that process is what leads to non-clinging, to letting go. It's about seeing the impermanence.
Ah, okay. So it's deeper than just noticing. It's understanding that impermanence. That sounds like a key shift. Let's dive into the first one then. Mindfulness of the body, or Kayanupasana. It starts with the breath, right? Like knowing if you're breathing long or short.
Exactly. Being aware of long breaths, short breaths, simply knowing I am breathing in, I am breathing out, and extending that awareness to the entire body as you breathe, aiming to calm what the text calls bodily formations, basically, the physical processes.
And there's that analogy it uses about the turner.
Yes, it's a great one. Just as a skillful turner or apprentice, when making a long turn, knows I am making a long turn, or when making a short turn, knows I am making a short turn. It's such a simple image, but it really highlights how this practice grounds you completely in the present moment, anchors you.
Right, anchors you to the breath. And it doesn't stop there, does it? It expands to postures and what it calls clear comprehension, mindfulness in walking, standing, sitting, lying down. Even mundane things like looking around, bending, stretching, eating, drinking, speaking. So it's really about bringing full awareness to basically everything you do all day long.
Exactly that. It's quite radical, this idea of comprehensive awareness. It turns every single routine action into a potential moment for mindfulness, for presence. It's about, making sure you're not just on autopilot.
Okay, now this next part. This is where it gets really interesting and maybe a little challenging for some of us. It introduces the contemplation of the body's impurities and elements, reflecting on what the body is actually made of.
Yes, it's very direct. The practice involves reflecting on the body, head to toe, as being full of various components. The text lists things like hair, nails, skin, organs, fluids, bones. But the point isn't to get grossed out. It's to see beyond the surface appearance, to recognize the body's composite nature as a collective of parts, not some solid, unchanging me.
And it uses some pretty vivid analogies to help with that, doesn't it?
It certainly does. For the impurities, it gives this image. Just as if there were a bag with openings at both ends, full of various grains, like rice, beans, sesame, and a sharp-eyed man were to open it and examine them. This is rice, this is paddy. It's about clear seeing, discrimination. And for the elements earth, water, fire, winning, it compares it to a butcher dividing up a cow carcass. Again, the purpose isn't morbid fascination. It's about developing detachment, a realistic view of the body, moving beyond our usual, often quite superficial ideas about it.
And it goes even further, pushing this realism with the cemetery contemplations. Those sound intense.
They are quite intense, yes. The text guides you to visualize a corpse in various stages of decay. Bloated, discolored, being eaten by creatures, then just skeletal remains eventually crumbling to dust. And the core reflection it encourages is, this body too is of the same nature, will be like that, and is not exempt from that fate.
Wow. So how does confronting our impermanence, our mortality, so directly actually impact how we live? Because honestly, that sounds pretty heavy.
It is heavy, and it's meant to be impactful. By really internalizing the impermanence of this physical form, you naturally start to loosen your attachment to it. This doesn't mean becoming morbid or depressed about it. Paradoxically, it often leads to appreciating the present moment much more deeply. Understanding that life, this experience, is precious precisely because it's fleeting. It can free you up to live more fully right now.
That makes sense, actually, a kind of paradoxical freedom. Okay, so we've explored the body quite deeply. What happens when we turn this same kind of unflinching awareness inward, towards our emotions, our thoughts?
Right, so we move to the second foundation, mindfulness of feelings, or Vedanamasana. The practice here is recognizing feelings as they arise, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Just knowing, this is a pleasant feeling.
Hmm.
But what's particularly insightful, I think, is that the text pushes you to observe the quality of the feeling, specifically distinguishing between feelings with attachment, samasai, and those without attachment, niramusa.
With and without attachment, can you give an example of that?
Sure, let's say you eat something delicious. A pleasant feeling arises. If you immediately start clinging to it, wanting more, craving it again later, maybe getting upset when it's gone, that's a feeling experienced with attachment. If, on the other hand, you simply note, pleasant taste, pleasant feeling, enjoy it while it's there, and let it go when it passes without creating a story around it, that's experiencing it without attachment.
I see. So it's really about our reaction to the feeling, not the feeling itself. Okay. And then we get to mindfulness of the mind, Suttantapiṭṭaka. This is observing the mind's state, like noticing if it's feeling lustful or angry or confused, or if it's contracted or scattered.
Exactly. Observing whether the mind is affected by lust, hatred, delusion, or their opposites, whether it's concentrated or unconcentrated, liberated or not. It's like taking, as you said earlier, a snapshot, simply knowing, this is how my mind is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, doing it without judgment. Just seeing these states as conditions that arise and pass away, like weather patterns in the sky. This helps you stop identifying with them. You see them as temporary visitors, not who you fundamentally are. It encourages a kind of critical distance from your own thought patterns.
That non-judgmental aspect sounds key. Okay, now we move into the realm of mental qualities, the Manapasana. This sounds pretty vast. Where do we start with that?
It is vast, yes. It's really a deep dive into the nature of experience itself as processed by the mind. We can start with the 5 hindrances. These are common obstacles. Sensual desire, ill will or aversion, sloth and torpor, which is like a mental heaviness or dullness, restlessness and regret, and finally, doubt or uncertainty. The practice involves knowing, is sensual desire present in me now or absent? Is ill will present or absent? And so on, for all 5. And not just knowing if they're present, but understanding how they arise, how you can abandon them, and importantly, how you can prevent them from arising again in the future.
Understanding that whole life cycle, how does that actually help when you're, say, stuck in doubt or feeling really restless? Because usually we just feel overwhelmed by them, don't we?
That's exactly the point. Instead of being swept away, you learn to see them clearly for what they are. Temporary mental states, patterns. Imagine the clarity, the sense of agency you'd gain by understanding, for instance, that the doubt you feel isn't some permanent character flaw. It's a mental quality that arose because of certain conditions. And like all conditioned things, it can cease. It can be abandoned. You learn its triggers, its patterns, and how to work with it skillfully, rather than just being its victim. It empowers you.
That sounds incredibly useful. What other mental qualities does this foundation cover?
Well, it moves on to explore the 5 aggregates of clinging. These are the basic components of what we tend to think of as self. Form, the body, feeling, perception, mental formations, like thoughts, intentions, and consciousness. The core practice here is observing their arising and passing away, constantly, seeing them not as a solid me, but as flickering processes that we tend to cling to, which causes suffering. Then it covers the 6 sense bases. That's the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, along with their corresponding objects, sights, sounds, smells, taste, physical sensations, and mental objects or thoughts.
So it's looking at the whole process of how we experience the world through our senses and mind.
Precisely. And the crucial part here is recognizing the fetter, the sanyojana, the attachment or aversion that arises dependent on these sense interactions. Think of a fetter like an emotional chain or entanglement. When you see something you really want and that strong pull of desire arises automatically, that's a fetter binding you. Or when you hear something unpleasant and instantly react with anger, that reaction is the fetter. The practice is about noticing that arising connection, that potential trap, and learning not to get caught by it, learning to abandon the fetter.
Okay, understanding the fetter, the entanglement, that's critical. Then does it move towards more positive qualities to cultivate?
Yes, exactly. Next come the 7 factors of enlightenment. These are qualities conducive to awakening. Mindfulness itself, investigation of phenomena, that analytical quality, energy or effort, rapture or joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. Here, the practice is knowing if these factors are present or absent within you, understanding how they arise and learning how to cultivate them, how to bring them to full development. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're states to actively nurture through practice.
And finally, we arrive at something many people might have heard of, the Four Noble Truths. Let's start with the first one, the truth of suffering, or dukkha.
Right. The text explains dukkha very broadly. It's not just obvious pain like sickness or injury. It includes the stress and unsatisfactoriness inherent in birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair. But it also includes more subtle forms, like the stress of being associated with what you dislike or separated from what you love, and fundamentally the suffering of not getting what you want. It culminates in this really profound statement. In brief, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering, meaning the very act of clinging to these impermanent components of our experience, our body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, consciousness, is suffering because they're inherently changeable and not ultimately satisfying.
Okay, so that's the diagnosis, the suffering. What about the cause, the truth of the origin of suffering? Where does the text say it all comes from?
It points directly to taya, which is usually translated as craving or thirst. Specifically, the craving that leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust. It identifies 3 main types: craving for sensual pleasures, sights, sounds, tastes, etc., craving for existence, wanting to become something to continue to achieve, and craving for non-existence, wanting to get rid of things, to annihilate, to not be. And the text is very precise about where this craving arises and takes root, in whatever seems pleasant and agreeable in the world. From the sights your eyes see and the sounds your ears hear, right through to the thoughts and ideas your mind processes. The insight is realizing that freedom comes not from endlessly trying to satisfy these cravings, but from understanding their nature and how they perpetuate dissatisfaction.
And if craving is the origin, then it follows that the truth of the cessation of suffering must be the cessation of craving.
It's described as the complete fading away and cessation of that very craving. Giving it up, relinquishing it, release from it, non-attachment to it. And crucially, the text emphasizes that craving ceases right where it arises, in relation to those same pleasant and agreeable things in the world. It's not about destroying the world or denying pleasure, but about changing your relationship to pleasure and craving, developing non-attachment.
Which leads us to the fourth truth, the how-to, the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. This must be the Noble Eightfold Path.
That's it. This is the practical guide, the framework for actually walking the path out of suffering. It consists of 8 interconnected factors. First, right view, which essentially means understanding these 4 noble truths correctly. Then, right intention or right resolve. The intention of renunciation, letting go, non-ill will, kindness, and non-harming, compassion. Right speech, refraining from lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. Right action, avoiding killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Right livelihood, earning a living in a way that doesn't harm others. Abandoning wrong ways of making a living. Right effort, this is the active part. Making an effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising, to abandon those that have arisen, to cultivate wholesome states that haven't yet arisen, and to maintain the wholesome states that are already present. They're very dynamic. Then, right mindfulness, which loops right back to what we've been discussing, maintaining awareness through the 4 foundations: body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities. Its centrality is clear. And finally, right concentration. This refers to developing deep states of meditative absorption, the jhanas. These are progressive stages moving from concentration with some mental activity towards profound inner stillness, joy, and eventually pure, unshakable equanimity beyond pleasure and pain.
Wow. That is incredibly comprehensive, from the breath all the way to these deep states of concentration and understanding the 4 noble truths. So after going through all this detail, this deep dive, what's the ultimate promise? What's the payoff for someone who really dedicates themselves to this direct path?
The text is actually quite explicit about the potential results. It says that if someone develops these 4 foundations of mindfulness diligently, they can expect one of 2 outcomes. Either final knowledge, enya, which means full liberation, enlightenment right here in this life, or if there's still some subtle clinging remaining, they attain the state of non-returner anagamata, which means they won't be reborn in the cycle of suffering again. They're heading directly for final liberation.
Okay, final knowledge or non-returner status, that's already profound. But here's the part I find truly remarkable, the timeline the text gives. It suggests these results aren't just for lifetimes of effort. It says the same results are possible for someone who practices diligently for 7 years, or 6, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 year, or even 7 months, 6 months, down to half a month. Even just 7 days. Is that right? 7 days.
That's what the text claims. Yes.
Here's the text 7.
7 days. It's a bold statement, and it really underscores the central message. This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the destruction of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of Nibbana.
Hmm.
It highlights the potency and the directness of these mindfulness practices when they're undertaken with real dedication and understanding.
It's quite something. From meticulously watching your breath and understanding the raw reality of the body, to tracking feelings, observing the mind's habits, confronting suffering head-on, and tracing the roots of craving. This ancient text offers this, well, surprisingly precise and incredibly thorough framework for self-understanding and, ultimately, inner freedom.
Absolutely. The Mahāsatipaṭṭhānasuttaṃ isn't just, philosophical speculation. It's a practical call to profound, active, moment-by-moment observation of yourself and the world. It really challenges you to look closely, unflinchingly at your own experience, promising a kind of clarity and peace that you might not have even imagined was possible.
So after all this, what does it really mean for you listening right now? Maybe consider this provocative thought. What if you were to pick just one of these practices we talked about? Maybe just observing your breath or tracking your feelings as they come and go, or simply noticing the state of your mind without judgment, or even exploring a mental quality like doubt when it arises. What if you committed to just that one practice, really committed, for just 7 days? What new insights, however small, might you uncover about your own inner world, your own experience?